when her yoga class checked into the Orpheum. The night I learned how easily a promise can change clothes, the city smelled like rain and someone else's perfume. My wife texted me a photo of a rolled mat and a water bottle and the caption, "Hot yoga with jewels, don't wait up person female." I stared at the picture long enough to notice the mirror in the studio's lobby wasn't our gym. The frame was antique brass with two small dents in the top rail. I'd seen it before in the elevator hall at the Orpheum Hotel, where I sometimes catered private dinners in a suite with windows that made the skyline blush. I told myself it was a coincidence. Then I found the Orpheum's key sleeve in the pocket of her trench, air-kissing me with a scent I couldn't unlearn: orange blossom, smoke, and cardamom. That's the perfume Claire wore when we first fell for each other, the one she'd stopped using because she said it felt like pretending. I make a living teaching the city to taste itself. Pop-ups, residencies, the occasional wealthy couple who want to eat something they'll remember at 3 a.m. I know where flavors hide and what they mean when they show up uninvited. Cardamom sweetens the truth, but it doesn't edit it. I walk to the Orpheum because sometimes the only way to outrun a guess is to catch it. The lobby swam with soft jazz and soft lies. I nodded to Angelo at the desk. He knew me as the guy with the copper pans and the scar on his thumb from slicing too confidently, and rode the elevator up with a man in a slate suit who checked his reflection more than the floor numbers. He got out at 9. I kept going to 11 because that's where the mirror from Claire's photo lives. I didn't plan any confrontation. I just wanted to see something I could put a name to. When the doors slid open, the hallway wore its ironed carpet and its hush. A laugh spooled out from the end near the blur-glass door to the rooftop bar. Claire's laugh has a skip in it, a little hitch that sounds like a candle being pinched out. I heard it once, then again, and then I saw her through the blur. My wife, hair pinned up with a tortoiseshell comb I bought her in Florence, walking hand in hand with a man who wasn't me toward a corner booth with a view like an alibi. I cooked for him once, Evan Rylance, venture capital with a smile that said trust me, even when his contracts didn't. He knew how to be charming in rooms that had chandeliers. He knew how to make women laugh like that. My mouth tasted metallic. I thought of 1,000 unheroic things. The laundry I'd folded, the secret folder of Claire's favorite recipes I'd built on my phone, the way her head fit my shoulder like it had been measured. I stood there until the hallway's air thinned, then backed into the shadow by the service stairway to breathe without making a sound. "Don't go in," a voice said beside me, low and unstartled. "You'll only end up performing for them." She stepped from the shade like someone the light had been waiting for. Dark hair in a loose knot, rain on the shoulders of her mint green dress, eyes that had learned not to blink when the truth arrived. She wasn't dressed like a hotel guest and not quite like a spy. There was something practical about her earrings. "You know me," I managed. "I know that look," she said, "and I know that man. I'm Sierra." She nodded toward the blur glass where Evan and Claire had just disappeared into the booth, two silhouettes nesting. "I'm his wife." Wife, the word bit cleanly. I looked from her to the door and back. "I'm Daniel," I said, as if my name could steady anything. "I know," she said, not unkindly. "You're the man who actually returns carts to the corral, the one who looks at ingredients before he looks at labels." "How?" She smiled. "I read his emails once. He was bragging about your chef's table to a client. I checked your site. Cardamom, smoke, orange blossom. That's you, isn't it?" "Yes," I said, "that's me." We stood together in the hallway like strangers trapped in the same elevator story. Her perfume was warmer than Claire's, a quiet jasmine. She looked toward the bar again. "If we walk in, they'll turn us into audience members," she said. "If we wait here, we'll turn into ghosts. There's a third option." "Which is?" "We leave," she said, voice of a woman who'd practiced choosing herself. "We let them get drunk on each other and the view and whatever story they've practiced. We don't give them the drama they think they want." I didn't trust my voice, but I trusted the steadiness in hers. We took the service stairs down. The concrete smelled like mopped lemon and old secrets. On the second flight, my hand grazed the railing near hers, and heat ran up my arm like electricity trying to remember my name. Outside, the rain had started, not a tantrum, not a whisper. Enough to paint the sidewalks and make headlights halo. We walked without plan, two umbrellas under one lamplight. She kept pace with me easily, not too close, not like a person rehearsing intimacy, but like someone who had practiced being companionable. "Why didn't you confront him?" I asked at last. "Why didn't you march in there and point to his mouth and say, 'You are mine'?" "Because he's not," she said, simple as a cutting board. "He's himself. Tonight he's choosing badly. If I claim him, I inherit the choice. I'd rather claim my feet, my breath." Then softer, without looking at me, "Besides, I think you needed to be spared that performance. I know I did." We stopped under the awning of a flower shop closing for the night. Buckets of drenched peonies sulked like debutantes. Sierra reached into one and liberated a single stem. The kid sweeping inside saw, considered, then waved at us with a grin that forgave. "For your pocket," she said, tucking the peony against my coat where the lapel meets the heart. Her fingers were cool and precise. The contact was nothing and not nothing, an intimacy smaller than a coin and just as heavy. I told her about the first time I cooked for Claire, how she ate with eyes half closed and made a sound that reorganized my future. I told her about the hotel sleeve and the elevator mirror. Sierra told me she met Evan when she was a grad student researching city fountains. He'd offered to fund her installation at a warehouse festival and insisted on carrying her drill like a courtship ritual. "He's a good man who forgets," she said. "He forgets that wanting is not the same as deserving." We reached my place without intending to. The door to the brownstone creaked the way all doors should. I hesitated because bringing another woman inside when my wife believed she was stretching in a heated room felt theatrical. "Tea?" I heard myself ask, and the eagerness in my voice betrayed how badly I needed someone else's presence in the clutter of this hour. "Tea," she said, "and a seat where my thoughts can stop packing." In my kitchen, the kettle sounded like relief. The room still held the scent of what I'd been prepping for a private dinner that now seemed absurd: roasted apricots with cardamom cream, fennel pollen brittle cooling on parchment, a bottle of vermouth that had been waiting for an occasion. I set 2 cups on the counter and, without announcing it to myself, opened the bottle anyway. The first sip was herb and memory. Sierra's eyes closed around it. "This is how trust tastes," she said. "Bitter enough to be real, sweet enough to try again." We sat on opposite sides of the island. The rain worked its fingers at the window. I felt the gravity between us like a tide you pretend not to notice as it takes your ankles. I wasn't supposed to touch her. She wasn't supposed to be in my kitchen. But we were 2 people in a room built for warmth, and the world outside had surrendered to wet noise. "Can I be honest?" she asked. "Please." Part of me wants to go back up there and make a scene. Another part wants to call a lawyer in the morning and let paperwork do the shouting. She toyed with the tag on her tea bag, the paper darkening where her finger pressed. But there's a small, treacherous part of me that wants to feel wanted, not as an argument, not as revenge, just as a body that still has weather. The word hung there, weather. I pictured her throat, the hollow at its base that seemed to be breathing on its own. I pictured nothing else because nothing else would have been kind. "Me too," I said, and the confession landed soft but heavy between us. "I want to be seen without having to prove anything." She stood, not quickly. She circled the island as if she were entering a conversation with the room and not just with me. She stopped an arm's length away. "We can be careful," she said, and I could hear all the ways the sentence could turn cruel if we were. "We can," I said. "We will." No dramatic music swelled. The kettle ticked as it forgot its heat. Sierra put her fingers on my wrist in a place my own pulse sometimes hides from me. She didn't reel me in. She anchored us both. When I leaned in, our mouths found each other slowly, like two maps comparing coastlines. The kiss was not a siege. It was study. It was a lesson in pressure and patience, the kind that makes space for a breath and then another, the kind that believes in what might happen if nothing is forced. Her hands rose to my shoulders and rested there as if claiming a shelf. I let mine learn the curve of her back above the waistline of her dress, then retreated a fraction when a small sound escaped her, not a protest, a reminder that we were near a line we'd both sworn to respect. We laughed quietly into each other's mouths. The rain approved by getting louder. When we parted, it was not a breaking. We stayed close enough for the air between us to keep our secret warm. "We should stop," she said, though her forehead still touched mine. "We should," I agreed, though the word felt like folding something that wanted to be worn. I stepped back. We finished the tea. We ate one roasted apricot each, standing, the fruit collapsing against our tongues with an indecent sigh I will hear forever. I wrapped two more in parchment for her to take. Before she left, she put her palm against my chest, just once, like a stamp against an envelope. "Thank you for not making this uglier," she said. "Thank you for letting it be tender and wrong instead of loud and right." After she was gone, the apartment felt newly shaped. The lamp on the counter carved a warm triangle on the tile. I sat there, listening to the rain finish what it started, and counted the ways a kiss can be clean even when its reasons aren't. Morning came with a message from Claire. "Yoga brutal, brunch with Jules, you good?" I stared at the words until they turned into shapes I didn't recognize. I wrote back, "We need to talk," and the three dots that followed made my stomach feel like a cold sink. We met that afternoon in our living room, a neutral territory now colonized by an unfamiliar quiet. I showed her the hotel sleeve. I told her about the mirror and the 11th floor. I didn't mention Sierra. That moment wasn't a theater for my sins. Claire cried the way people cry when a story stops fitting. She said she was lonely in a room full of my knives and burners and polished copper, that she wanted to feel chosen in ways the world could see. She said a lot of things that were both true and insufficient. "I wanted it to mean less than it did," she finished, hands knotted tight enough to leave crescent moons in her palms. "I wanted to come home and pretend the city never happened." The city had happened. The city happens all the time. We tried for a week to be better narrators. We slept close. We took long walks without mentioning the sky. We ate on the balcony like a couple in a magazine. But a story doesn't heal by pretending it didn't bleed. On the 8th day, we called a counselor. On the 15th, we called a moving company. Sierra texted me only twice in that whole stretch. The first time, "I told him he wants to try, I don't know what that means." The second, "If you ever need a bench that faces water, Pier 6 at sunset is honest." We met there a month later, not as conspirators but as two people who had stopped choosing denial. Her hair was down. She wore no earrings at all, which felt braver. We didn't rush a greeting. The river was doing its endless homework and the sky was grading on a curve. She sat. I sat. Our knees learned each other again through denim. "How are you?" she asked, the least helpful and most necessary question. "Hungry in a way food can't fix," I said. She nodded, same. We didn't kiss there. We didn't even touch. We watched a couple take wedding photos by the water, wind trying to lift the bride's veil into a new career as a kite. When the light turned that syrupy color it saves for the patient, Sierra's fingers found my sleeve and held it. Not my hand, my sleeve. It was enough. What we became after that wasn't dramatic. We met for breakfasts that started too early and ended too late. We traded recipes and favorite short stories and the names of our worst teachers. When we kissed again, weeks later in my kitchen, over toast too dark and a grapefruit she salted like her grandmother taught her, it felt less like theft and more like a kiwi, cut together, honest and quiet. We were careful. We kept the erotics where tenderness lives. We learned each other's breathing like languages and stopped whenever the grammar felt brittle. We never pretended what brought us here was noble. We just decided to be gentle with the part of the story we could control. Sometimes I still pass the Orpheum. The elevator hall mirror catches me as I go by, frames me in brass and memory, and I look myself in the eyes long enough to check whether I'm telling the truth. The lobby smells like orange blossom and smoke. The city keeps being a city, complicated, seductive, bright with rooms where people make choices they'll name differently tomorrow. Sierra keeps a toothbrush in my bathroom now. It leans against mine like an admission. We cook together at least once a week. Nothing grand. Nothing that would impress a client, just roasted chicken that makes the whole apartment smell like childhood and lemon. Pasta with handfuls of basil so generous it forgives us. Sometimes, in the middle of stirring or slicing, she'll wrap her arms around my waist from behind and rest her face between my shoulder blades, and it will feel more intimate than anything we could set to music. When it rains, we crack the window just enough to let the weather in. She'll stand there and close her eyes, and I'll watch the way her lashes collect droplets, and I'll remember the hallway outside the rooftop bar, the service stairs, the peony, the first kiss that tasted like refusing to be mean to ourselves. I'll remember that the line between ruin and rescue is drawn with a pencil, and that we, clumsy as we are, drew ours in soft strokes and left room to erase. If there's a moral, I don't trust it. I only trust the way she says my name when she's smiling without trying, the way she stops kissing me to laugh and then immediately starts again, the way we never pretend the past is tidy, the way we keep choosing the small, honest thing over the dramatic, dishonest one. The last time we walked past the Orpheum together, she squeezed my hand and said, "Let's give the city something boring to talk about." We went home. We opened the windows. We cooked. We tasted. We paid attention. And when the night pressed its ear against our glass to listen, we let it hear what tenderness sounds like when it's learning to trust its own weather.